Everyone, welcome back to OCD Recovery's YouTube channel. Today, I'm going to do a very extensive video about sensorimotor. I'm going to break down common myths around sensorimotor. I'm going to break down how I recovered from sensorimotor OCD. I'm going to break down why most people don't recover from sensorimotor OCD or all OCD fears, which it's not really a question of do they have the tools. We know what works, we know what doesn't work from a sufferer's perspective. It's just that the journey is usually a lot harder than we want it to be, so it's really easy to coast. So before we go any further, please subscribe, hit that like button, comment down below, let me know what you think about this. I've done a ton of videos in the past covering sensorimotor OCD. I've had all the big five: breathing, saliva, swallowing, heartbeat, blinking, but the ones that stuck the most with me was saliva and swallowing. Those lasted for about 2 years, pretty chronically, until I really developed unconditional life acceptance, which is huge. Now, I want to start this video off by starting the way that I've never actually started before. And I think this is going to relate to anyone who has anything in their life that they hold as an identity with trauma. So I don't look at my experience suffering with OCD as traumatic. That's a personal choice. You can do what you want with that, and I'm going to tell you why I don't. It would be ignorant to say that experiences in your life, let's move away from the word trauma, experiences in your life can instill new belief systems. That's understandable, right? You experience war, you come back, you have new belief systems. Maybe you have resentment against people and all these other things. And there's a biological tendency. That's kind of how PTSD and OCD work. When you go through an event that's super stressful, and it kind of turns on that genetic component, because there's more than likely a huge biological, tendency when it comes to these anxiety-based disorders. It's why GAD's misdiagnosed all the time, generalized anxiety disorder. People come in, they're like, oh, I'm stressed about exams, and they say GAD. That's not what GAD is. GAD is very, very similar to panic disorder. It's 24/7 anxiety that does not turn off unless you break down fear of fear. And I mean 24/7. It does not turn off. You'll have somewhat anxiety in the background all day from the moment your eyes go to sleep, moment your eyes open to the moment you go to sleep. So the reason why I don't look at my sensorimotor experience as traumatic is because I knew that if I connected that in that regard and how the general public looks at traumatic experiences, again, I'm not taking away for the things that went on in your life, I knew that I would never be able to recover. I'm hard-pressed to find anyone who's made serious headway in their OCD who are constantly saying, well, I've had these traumatic things happen in my life and trauma this and trauma that. I'm not saying that things haven't been tough, but you need to look at events for what they are, break those events down, look at the beliefs you have against those events, and look at your emotional consequence now, right? A, activating event, your belief system about the activating event, and then your C, your consequence. So like chronic depression, anxiety, shame, guilt. So now let's move to the sensorimotor journey itself, where I am, where I was. I am completely recovered from sensorimotor OCD. There's no fear cycle at all. When I talk about recovery from sensorimotor OCD, the number one question I get asked is, are you hyper-aware? Are you hyper-aware anymore? Does that mean I never notice my sensations again? That desperate search for never noticing your sensation again is what's holding you back in the long term. The desperate search to never notice your sensations again is the reason why you're stuck in the OCD sensorimotor hyper-awareness cycle. And it actually is good to talk about. So it's called sensorimotor. Those are the ones you kind of can Google and see, also known as somatic OCD. And then hyper-awareness. That could be the fear of tinnitus, the fear of actually having tinnitus. I have tinnitus myself. I don't notice it basically ever, maybe 1% of the day when I'm, because I'm not afraid of it. And that could be clothing, hyper-awareness of temperatures, hyper-awareness of your consciousness. People come into me and they say, Nick, I'm super hyper-aware of my thoughts. I'm super hyper-aware of my body movements. It's not just sensorimotor, where the breathing, blinking, salivating, swallowing, and heartbeat, the big five, I call them, for sensorimotor. It's hyper-awareness of all fears. Now, when this latched for me, I was driving in the car. Holy fucking shit, that was scary. So I was driving in the car in this place, Ponce Inlet in Florida by Daytona Beach. I was just about to graduate grad school. Everyone here, I'm laying on the ground like this. I'm like to my wife, I can't stop thinking about my blinking. My wife said to me, what are you talking about? Imagine hearing that for the first time. It sounds so funny. I can't stop thinking about my blinking. I'm like, boom, 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 boom. And that just kind of, I remember I had such a bad headache for like 3 weeks because all I thought about was my blinking. And I did everything I could to run from that. After about a month, I had left the gym and I was taking a drink of my water in the parking lot and then saliva and swallowing. It was saliva first, then swallowing. I remember that night I drove to the gas station, bought a pack of cigarettes and I smoked cigarettes when I was younger. I was smoking a cigarette crying. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I mean, I don't know if Erica will remember that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have this now. I already had tonight. Because remember, before this, I suffered with the fear of tinnitus for 3 or 4 months. Didn't sleep, went to the audiologist, tried to get my ears checked all the time, stopped using headphones, stopped using silverware, metal silverware, stopped driving my windows open. All these fear avoidance behaviors based off of, if I know this is a sensation for the rest of my life will be ruined. So November 2019, I was admitted to the mental hospital. It is important to highlight that most people will never go to a mental hospital, but it also is important to highlight that I went to a mental hospital because we really didn't know what was going on. So I get admitted to the mental hospital. And I was misdiagnosed with bipolar. I was misdiagnosed with, they said GAD, I believe. I didn't have GAD at the time. I did suffer with GAD for about a year. Really, really bad physical symptoms of anxiety that is perpetuated from highly sensitized nerves because of your belief system. And then that fear kind of perpetuating that. There's no chronic anxiety, no chronic shame, no chronic guilt when you change your beliefs over the long term, which is very difficult, but it is doable. I like highlighting the difficulty of it because you need to be prepared. I was reading one of Ellis's books again this morning, his relationship book. He said the reason why most of the belief changing fails in relationships is people go in with a mindset of blind optimism where they're like, this is going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. This is why people get triggered and they run. This is why people do what they do because it's called the doubting disorder, and that's what happens. So it's super important to break that down. So I got released from the mental hospital, graduated grad school on December 20th, 2019, and then I moved to Colorado. I spent 2 weeks in Florida, in South Florida, at my in-laws' house. They have a house down there where I was dreading that 32-hour drive. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to drive from South Florida to Colorado. That's 32 hours, chronically hyper-aware of my sensations. I was just freaking out, understandably so. I was constantly drinking energy drinks. I was doing distraction techniques, relabeling the whole 32 hours. It was one big compulsive nightmare, but I really didn't know what was going on. I hadn't met Rob at this time, and Rob was like, look, you have to stop playing video games. I didn't listen. I brought my video games. I bought a PC, which is not good if you're a gamer. You know how that goes, down the PC route. It's like you graduate, right? It's like, you Game Boy when you're younger. Then it's like we had N64, GameCube, then PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, Xbox, and then PC. And when you get to the PC world, you're just a total nerd. Like I was, just a nerd. So I played video games until about May 1st, 2020. That's when I put my video games away. That's when I decided to make my recovery an absolute necessity. No, sorry, take that back. No, that's not true. I did make it a necessity, which wasn't good. I was like, I need to recover in order to live my life. It's very understandable. A lot of people in the WhatsApp groups hear me talking about this a lot. Why I say, if you work on recovery, this is going to sound funny. If you work on recovery with the dire hope it goes away, you will not recover. You'll make progress, but you're never going to recover. This is what recovery is. Your life, OCD recovery, anxiety recovery, moving side by side. Working on this while you're living your life. Bring it for the ride. Not disputing in the moment, not engaging with thoughts as they come, not relabeling, not doing distraction techniques, not using thoughts all day long. Good for creating distance, but breaking down the core fear. The fear of being stuck forever, the fear of it ruining your life, and everything. This is all based, this entire talk is based around sensation-based fears, hyper-awareness fears. So if it's not breathing, blinking, salivating, swallow, heartbeat, it could be hyper-awareness of your ears, your nose. And don't run. If I just said that and that just triggered you right there, allow yourself to be triggered. Bridge of your nose. Hyper-awareness of your hands when you're driving. Anything it can be. It will switch around. It will morph. That's what it does. So I put my video games away May 1st, 2020. So a little over 2 years ago. Holy shit, was the first 3 months rough. And I did everything I was supposed to be doing. Read all the books on the reading list compulsively. Don't be like Nick. We joke about that all the time in the webinar. Don't be like Nick. Don't read all the books in a month. Didn't have to do exposures. We're going to talk about that soon. And I'll tell you why. I had to bring down my avoidance behavior, so people semantically will be like, well, that's an exposure. Yes, but we're going to talk about that. So I brought down my avoidance behaviors, but I still stayed stuck for like another 18 months. Another 18 months. That doesn't mean I was chronically suffering in the entire 18 months. I started the business, I was hiking, crazy mountains, I was going back to the gym, was cooking my own food again. I gained like 40 pounds. I'm already short. Rob likes to make fun of me. I'm 5'7". I was like 220 pounds. Was just eating cookies all the time, eating burgers out. There was this great burger place by me in Florida. Oh my gosh, what is the name of that place? I used to get this black and blue burger, like double patty. It was like that big. Massive blue cheese crumbles. I would eat that all the time, and like 3 sides of fries. Because I was just distracting in any way I could. While I was playing video games, while I was drinking Monster energy drinks like 5 times a day, while I was smoking 2 to 3 cartridges of the Juul. So if you smoke the Juul, what do they say, equivalent 1 pack? I was smoking 2-3 of those a day. I would game for like 20 hours. A low day for me was 14 hours. A low day. I'm not exaggerating. Midnight till 2 in the noon to 2 in the morning. Sometimes I had friends I was playing with that I met online who were stalkers at Costco and a food supermarket store. If you're not from the country, don't know what Costco is. And they wouldn't get home till 5 in the morning, and I would get on at 5 in the morning to play with them for another 10 hours. It's no wonder why my wife did not like me at that time period. And then throw my personality on top of that, which was pretty self-pity and moping, which is understandable. You know, I just didn't have any self-acceptance at the time. So what do I mean by exposures aren't necessary? Where is my stuff? Okay. So if this was a sensory motor fear for you, okay? Sensory motor, which is a physio. I'm using this as a metaphor. If this was never going to go away, if I told you this is going to be there for the rest of your life, you don't need to expose yourself to something that's never going away. So like this, take this as breathing, right? So why would you need to expose yourself to a physiologic function that's going to happen until you die? You're going to breathe, salivate, swallow, blink, heart. All these things are going to happen. The bridge of your nose is going to be there. Your ears are going to be there. Most people don't, not most, but a lot of people don't escape tinnitus, ringing in the ears. That's what happens when you lose your hearing, and your hair cells in your ears do not rejuvenate. That probably will trigger you. So there's no way to rejuvenate ear cells right now that they know of. So if you have tinnitus, you develop tinnitus, you got tinnitus. That doesn't need to scare you once you break the fear down and realize it's just a sound. Yes, it can be frustrating, but it's not the end of the world. So why would you expose yourself to something over and over and over and over again that's never going away? Doesn't make any sense. So I see people, they're like, I'm breathing through a straw. I'm sitting in my bed, meditating to my saliva, my swallowing. I'm meditating to the feeling of my eyelids for my blinking. It is super understandable why you do that, because with other fears such as harm OCD, contamination OCD, magical thinking, anything where safe in fear and death. So if you're like putting bubble wrap against certain countertops to not hurt yourself, removing all the knives, those need outward exposures. Sensory motor does not. It does not need those exposures. Now, certain hyper awarenesses can use exposures. Everyone laughs at me. I didn't wear underwear for 15 years before I was chronically latched. Little did I know that was all based on my sensation and my fears. I didn't want to notice these sensations for the rest of my life. I thought my life was ruined. So I needed to expose myself by wearing underwear. But sensory motor, the big 5, blinking, breathing, salivating, swallowing, and heartbeat, do not need direct exposures. I promise you that. Yes, you can use it as a meditation technique. I'm sure there are people who have made progress doing that. The reason why I don't recommend that, and I work with a lot of sensory motor sufferers, the reason why I don't recommend that is the number one reason why you're doing it. I'm saying when I'm working with Jim, random guy, Jim. Hey, Jim, tell me why you're breathing through a straw. Well, I'm just trying to habituate. I'm trying to habituate, a magic word, habituate. I just want to habituate. What do you mean by that, Jim? Well, I want to habituate so I never notice my breathing again. Wrong. Red pill, like when the world's about to blow up, 3 minutes to destruction. That is such a nerd. That right there, the only reason you're doing that is because you're afraid of noticing your sensations forever. I'm going to tell you what to work on to recover from sensory motor. Getting used to the fact that it might not ever go away. Getting used to the fact that even if you notice your sensations for the rest of your life, it's not the end of the world. Realizing what your compulsive avoidance behaviors are to not feel those sensations. Bring those down, but that's not enough. I had no avoidance behaviors. I wasn't really mentally ruminating anymore automatically. Like it wasn't that automatic process I always talk about. I wasn't really measuring the internal thermometer, but I still was like kind of stuck because I realized that I was still afraid of noticing the sensation for the rest of my life. That was the reason why I was stuck. If you are afraid, so think about what the belief system is that you need to get at. All OCD sufferers need to hear this, whether you have sensation, sensorimotor, maybe you have another fear. The fear of noticing something forever, the recovery belief is, even if I notice this for the rest of my life, it's not the end of the world. So you don't work on recovery with the hopes it goes away. You work on recovery with the preference that you recover, but if you never did, it's not the end of the world. That is the key to recover from OCD. That is the key that most people don't understand, and that is absolutely the key to the big 5 hyper-awarenesses and other sensorimotor and the hyper-awareness type fears, whether it's there are people, literally, this is what people will do, right? Maybe you have a hyper-awareness of temperature and humidity, so you move to the cold. Avoidance behavior. It's still going to last because you never worked on the core fear. You won't wear a certain jacket ever again. Well, you're not, that's just going to morph to something else. Will morph to a shoe, morph to a shirt, morph to your underwear. It will morph. If you don't work on the core fear, it's like the upside down in Stranger Things. It just goes underneath and morphs and will find you. It will find you. It's the mind flayer from, Rob's going to watch this and laugh. It is going to find you. I promise. Okay? Working on the core fears is critical. So no, you don't have to do outward exposures for the big 5. Other hyper-awarenesses, clothes, temperatures, yes. The fear of fear, aka conditional life acceptance, is what is needed to actually recover. If you don't work on that, again, not with the hopes, I'm wearing it. I'm wearing it. I am wearing that sensation, Nick. I'm wearing it. Are you, Jim? Are you wearing it with the hopes that, please go away? Oh my God, go away. Or are you wearing it with, this is going to be here for a little bit. Might be here for a couple of years. Might be here forever. But maybe I can change my relationship with it. Maybe one day I will recover. Maybe one day I won't. Maybe one day I won't be as hyper aware. Maybe one day I won't be nearly as anxious. But I don't need those things to live my life. That is recovery. That is the key. You can't relabel. You can't switch the thoughts around. You can't do any of that. That just doesn't work. I wish it did. It doesn't work. Now, let's look at timelines and deadlines. Excuse me. There's no timeline, there's no deadline with OCD recovery, especially sensorimotor OCD because it's inside you. Every single fear is handled the same way through unconditional self-life, other acceptance, exposures when necessary, uncertainty to a degree, a large degree, but not the entire picture, time, patience, persistence, ups and downs. The formula, if you want to call it a formula, or the blueprint on what to do to recover is simple. But the journey of recovery is extremely complex with lots of confusion, lots of physical symptoms, maybe chronic shame and anxiety and guilt firing at the same time. Maybe 6 months, no anxiety. Maybe a year with chronic anxiety and no intrusive thoughts. Maybe 9 months of intrusive images and intrusive anxiety, but no intrusive thoughts. So there's no rules. OCD has no rules. It is like a shape-shifting, it's like the Boggett in Harry Potter. Remember the thing? It turned into Voldemort when Harry went to the chest. It's like the Boggett. It shape shifts and it morphs, and there's not a single way on this is what you have to do to recover. That's not true. This is what we know works for recovery, but the journey itself is all over the place. It is so important to highlight that. So let's go back and cover everything we covered so far. The big 5, hyper-awareness, somatic OCD, whatever it is, fear of being stuck for the rest of your life, unconditional life acceptance, that's what you use to break it down, time and patience, even if you notice the sensation for the rest of your life, it wouldn't be the end of the world. That's what is needed to recover from these fears. You can do it. I did it. I know everyone has it in them to do it. But it doesn't mean that doesn't try to catch me every once in a while. If I might still at times do something compulsive, I might rear its head for a little bit, like maybe an hour, sometimes here and there. But there's no cycle. It's got nothing on me. I'd blink. I'll put much saliva in my mouth, leave it there. It's got nothing on me. I definitely don't like it, but it's not the end of the world. There are much worse things out there. Much, much, much worse. We have the ability to get better. And even if you don't get better, you have the ability to change your relationship with the sensation, which equals getting better to a degree. It is the truth. So there is absolutely no formula for how the journey will look. We know it works. Unconditional self-life, other acceptance, especially with this, unconditional life acceptance. Break it down, fear. Exposures, if they're necessary for a particular certain hyper-awareness, like a clothing or a temperature. But again, you can't just chase that. You can't just be like, if you're afraid of hot weather, you can't just like sit in a sauna all the time and be like, why are you not going? We all do that. It's the fear. Is it the fear of being uncomfortable for the rest of your life? This is something I talk about with contamination OCD. There are hyper-awareness fears with contamination OCD. The hyper-awareness is the fear of feeling gross, the fear of feeling contaminated. That is actually a hyper-awareness aspect of it. But I'm just using the titles to just give you it. You got to just look at what you're scared of. It doesn't matter if it's sensorimotor, ROCD, existential, POCD, harm OCD. There's a fear that's present. You're more than likely doing avoidance behaviors. Mental rumination is firing because you're still scared. This is critical. This is how you break it down. I know it sounds redundant, but I try to nail it home because I know what it's like to be stuck with sensorimotor, telling people to breathe through a straw or meditate. Yeah, that's all fun and games, but it's not going to bring you to recovery because you're scared of being stuck and you're scared of noticing it for the rest of your life. So how you recover from that is realizing that you don't need recovery. It's a major preference, but you don't need it. That is how you recover. So thank you so much for watching this video. I was definitely hyped up in this one. I don't know why. I think I would be tired because I slept 2 hours the night before. If Rob saw, it was like 2. It was like, honestly, it wasn't even 2.5 because I was so excited. I was like up and down. Then I went hiking. I hiked 14,000 feet. I ate pizza twice yesterday at 2 different places. Lovely decision. Hiking is great. When you hike, let me tell you something. You want to know how you expose yourself to uncomfortable sensations? Hike at 14,000 feet where oxygen's at like 60%. I don't know if it's 60, it might be 65. Maybe it's 70. I don't know. It's lower. That's all I know. Because it ain't sea level. It's like 3 miles in the air. Imagine being on Everest. Holy crap. 5.5 miles in the air, 29,000 feet. Whoa. Hyper awareness all the time when I was going through that. But I knew what I needed to do. I had to bring it with me. I couldn't force it away. And then once I realized I didn't need it gone, that's how I got better. So thank you so much for watching this video. Comment down below, hit the like button. We'll talk about sensorimotor. We'll talk about hyper-awareness. And like I said, there's a lot of hope out there. But again, remember, the whole summary of this video is work on recovery as a preference. You're not wearing, I'm wearing it. No, you're wearing it with the hopes it goes away. That's not acceptance. It takes time to understand that. These perspective shifts are small, but they're also major. They're small, but they're major, and they have, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. I'm turning in the moment. You see what I mean? And I make fun of Moment because Moment's videos are longer. Because he's like, Moment, do a 15-minute video. And video comes out, it's 92 hours. I'm not trying to listen to Moment for that long, as much as I love it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, guys and ladies. Comment down below, like I said. Hit that like button. Subscribe. Let me know what you think. Let me know some of the other information that's maybe helped you, maybe something I didn't touch on. And we will go. Until next time, have a good one.